Uh, First and foremost, welcome to the session of BA second year semester 3, where we're going to talk about the structure of modern English and semester 3 again, right? So we have already finished the first block and where we learned about the organs of speech in the previous sessions, also about the vowels and the consonants, which comes under the topic sound. Okay, the block 1. Now we are moving on to block 2, which talks about words. Okay, so after the sound system, we are moving into the words, that is the morphology, right? So in this block, we have 4 units where we are going to deal with just 2 units for this session today. And here this the block 2, which talks about the words, deals with the morphological structure of English. Okay, and that is, it means it deals with the study of words, right? And then the first unit, which talks about content words and structure words, and the unit also gives the learner an insight into the use of strong and weak forms of structure words and contracted forms, which contribute to maintaining the typical rhythm of the English language. Then the second unit, which deals with word classes. Now, these are traditionally known as parts of speech. Word classes are nothing but parts of speech, okay? And the unit explains some of the limits of the traditional classification of words into different parts of speech and encourages you to understand the category to which a word belongs to in terms of the morphological and syntactic properties of words. Now, coming to the next third and fourth unit, where we're going to talk about verbs, which will be taken up in the next session. So as of now, today, we're going to deal with only unit 4 and 5. So where it talks about the, so let us come to unit 4, where it talks about the content versus function words. Right. So content words, right? So what are content words? Now words in English can be distinguished into content and structure words. Structure is nothing but function words again, right? So content words are words that have meaning, and they are words we would look up in a dictionary, such as lamp, computer, drove, and new content words are constantly added to the English language. Now, old content words constantly leave the language as they become obsolete. Therefore, we refer to content words as an open class. Now, not just that, now these are the words that carry meaning, and they also enable you to form mental images. Okay. Now, for example, if you close your eyes and someone reads out words like school, table, girl, pen, and tree, so on, and etc., you can form mental images of those words. So that's how these are called as content words. Now, as I told you, the content words are, let me move to the next slide. Mostly they are, content words are nouns, adjectives, adverbs, main verbs, and demonstrative and interrogative pronouns. Right. And another important point of these content words that they have the most stress in English, and they are usually, as I just now mentioned, as nouns, verbs, adjectives, and so on. And these words are important to express the main meaning of the sentence. Now, when I talk about nouns, there's an example given here like Sam, chair, happiness. And then you have verbs such as read, love, dance. Then you have adjectives such as read, big, adverbs, nicely, patiently, equally, and negative words not, never, neither. And then we have modals such as should, could, might, yes and no in short answers. Then we have quantifiers, some, many, no, all, and 1, 2, 3, etc. and WH questions. Right. Now coming to the structural words or the function words, right? So when the structure words and the ones, mostly in spoken English, words which are generally not prominent are the structure words. Now, they do not carry any meaning in isolation. Such words are called structure words. Structure words or function words, they are also called as function words. They're also known as grammatical words. Now, structure words help to form a grammatically correct sentence. And structure words are auxiliary or helping verbs, prepositions, articles, conjunctions, personal pronouns, and relative pronouns. Right. Now, it's like this. I'll just give you a simple example over here. We can take the analogy of bricks and cement in building a wall to understand content and structure words. Now, content words are like the bricks and structure words are like cement, which help to put the content words together and build a grammatically correct sentence. So in an utterance said, without any special emphasis, content words receive the accent and structure words do not. And sometimes structure words also do receive that kind of a stress in a sentence when if it has to be emphasized. Okay. And most of the function words are weaker, shorter, and they include auxiliary verbs, prepositions, conjunctions, determiners, and possessive adjectives. Okay. And these words are less important in expressing the meaning of the sentence. Auxiliary verbs such as are, was, has, could, would, etc. Prepositions, conjunctions, determiners, and pronouns. Right. Now, their function of the structure words is they kind of act like a glue a sentence. They put these sentences together, right? They are the grammatical words that glue a sentence together, right? Now, what is the difference? What is the difference between a content and a function words? Now, this is very, very important. Why? Because content words are stressed in conversation in English, whereas function words are not emphasized in speech, while content words are highlighted. Knowing the difference between content and function words can help you in understanding and most importantly, in pronunciation skills. I mean, that is how you will know where to pronounce it, where to stress the word in a sentence, right? And here we have the content words which are given in bold. This is an example slide. So if you can look at these content words, they are either nouns, adjectives, adverbs, or main verbs, and demonstrative and interrogative pronouns. Right. So in connected speech, function words tend to be pronounced as weak forms with one of the weak vowels. And if a function word is stressed, it will be pronounced with strong vowel sound, meaning that many function words have two possible pronunciations, a weak version and a strong version. So these are shown for some example function words below. So if you look at this, the strong and the weak, how they are pronounced. Like, for example, if you look at the strong pronunciation of these function words, right? It is R, where the vowel sound is long, right? And when it comes to a weaker version, it is very short, R. So you just simply say it R. Then have, then have. Then were, then were. That's it. Were and were. Then to, then to. So it goes on like that, right? Just have a look at it. So if you look at it, strong forms of words are often longer and louder. Now, weak forms are often flatter and quicker. They can be difficult to hear and sometimes almost silent. So these grammatical words, they help us to construct the sentence, as I already told you, but they actually don't mean anything, right? Like articles, prepositions, conjunctions, and auxiliary verbs, etc. Now, these words have no stress, and so they are weakened. And that weakened form is called weak form, as opposed to a strong form. So which is the full form of the word pronounced with stress. So the strong form only happens when we pronounce the words alone or when we emphasize them. So weak forms are very often pronounced with a schwa, and so are weak, very weak, and sometimes a bit difficult to hear properly. Now, sometimes weak forms are easy to spot because we use contractions in the spelling to show it. Say, for example, I'll just read out a sentence for you. I am French. Okay, that's a strong form. Then if you happen to look into the weak form, I am. So you can notice the contraction of I am, right? Then we have, I would like some fish and chips. This is another example. Like you can simply say, I'd like some fish and chips. I'd. That's how we're going to contract it. Okay. Then we have another example. Let me tell you. Can we sit here? So there is something called can we sit here? That's a weak form, isn't it? Then when you happen to see the strong form, we know you can. So here we are stressing on can. So the same can, it's like, in a strong form and a weak form. When I say we know you can I'm stressing when it comes at the end, towards the end. But then can we sit here? If you're just asking somebody, then that's a weak form. The can is a weak form. Then again, when you look at but, okay, let us take the strong form of it. She is but a fool. Okay, she is but a fool. So here we are insisting, stressing on this word, and that's a strong form because it contextually, that is what I told you in the beginning itself. So contextually, the stressing differs at times, right? Though they are structural words or function words, sometimes they are stressed and hence they are called strong forms. Now, another weak form for but, he is good but not intelligent. That's a weak form. He's good but not intelligent. See, we just quickly rush through. We don't insist on that but, right? Then we have that. So the strong form here, it goes like this. That is David's car. So here I'm insisting, the one which has been shown there, that is David's car. When I have to show something about the weak form, I think that we should get a new one. So here I am trying to rush through. I'm not insisting or pronouncing it strongly. I think that we should get a new one. So these are some of the weak forms and the strong forms. Another example of at. I mean, most of the time we come across this. What are you looking at? So here I'm insisting on at, right? Then that's a strong form. When I look at the weak form, I'll see you at noon. So here at noon, quickly I try to pass through that. You can hardly hear it, and that's a weak form. Right. So let me just give you a clue as to when these function words become strong in a sentence. So a function word can become strong when they are found at the end of a sentence. That is one point. And when it becomes strong when it is a negative. So for example, I can speak English. See, I can speak English. But then if I say a negative form of it, I can't speak English. Can't is stressed here. So it becomes strong when it's a negative. And again, the third point here it is when it is an auxiliary or modal substitute or when it includes the main verb. Okay. For example, I can't speak English, but my friend can. Okay, here it means uh, which the modal verb here, it says the contracted form of this, I can't speak English, but my friend can. Okay, and then the third one is when we use double stress for emphasis. Right. Moving on to the next slide. Right. So in a sentence consisting of content and function words, the content words are typically stressed and the function words are typically weak. So are we going to the shops? So if you can see the bolded ones, going and shops are the content words. However, stress is always related to meaning. So the above sentence could have stress on we and not on the two content words. Are we going to the shop? So look at this contextually. So in this example, the concept of going to the shops is already in the conversation, right? But the focus of the meaning is on we. The strong pronunciation of the function word is then used, right? Now coming to the contractions, right? So here we have the contracted forms. So in English speech, auxiliary verbs and negations are normally contracted. That is, certain sounds are deleted to reduce the time gap between two stressed syllables. So contracted forms are of two kinds. That is the auxiliary plus negation, pronoun plus auxiliary. Okay. So like a contraction is any word that's made by combining two separate words. Some of the letters from the original words are omitted and replaced with an omissive apostrophe, or an example of a contraction is don't, which is made by combining the words do and not. Right. So we rely on contractions all the time in normal conversation. So when people speak to each other, there is typically an expectation that they will use contractions whenever they can, as doing so saves time. Right. So let us quickly look into this page 73, where the first category where I gave you something about the auxiliary plus negation, right? So here we have the auxiliary verb plus the negation. So does not, what does it become? Doesn't. Has not becomes hasn't, right? Was not, wasn't. Can not becomes can't, okay, or can. Right. Next, we move on to the second category, that is the pronoun plus auxiliary, right? So here it is she plus will, okay, becomes she'll. So we are omitting one letter from the next word, she'll. Now he plus is gives you he's. It plus is gives you its. They plus will gives you they'll, and they plus are gives you their. So here, now you can also look at the contracted forms given on page 74. Like you have, they will try to recover it. So they will becomes they'll. That's the contracted form. And then you have, he didn't want to spoil it. He did not want to spoil it becomes didn't. You can see it on page 74. Then don't let him take it from you. That is, do not let him take it from you. It's probably at school. So it is, right? So in casual conversation, contractions in English involving nouns are fairly common. My dad will be home soon. So in writing, however, they're much rarer than contractions with pronouns such as I'll, he'd, and she's. You can contract proper nouns to mean is or has, such as in the sentence, Shelley's coming with us. So is Shelley is coming with us becomes Shelley's in speech, or Jeff's bought a new computer. So Jeff has bought a new computer. Watch out for the homonyms whose and whose. The contraction is who is and who has. And the whole word is possessive, as in whose car is that? And of course, if you're visiting the South, you'll likely hear the colloquial, yeah, why all or you all, right? Right. So here we go with more contractions, like I've already discussed it. I, he, she, it, they, where it can, with the modal verbs, I can, I will, I might, or he can, he will, and so on. Right. So here we have the contractions with not. So it's like negative contractions usually involve combining an auxiliary verb with not. The contraction for not is N apostrophe T. So we have already discussed this. Isn't, is not, aren't, are not, can't, cannot, don't, do not. Right. Now coming to the next concept, rhythm. Right. What is rhythm? Now, as we all know, rhythm deals with the flow of the language. Right. It's a recurring pattern of relatively strong and relatively weak syllables. So whereas in music, the rhythm is usually produced by making certain notes in a sequence, but stand out from others by being louder or longer or higher. So, but in speech, we find that syllables take the place of musical notes or beats. And in many languages, the stressed syllables determine the rhythm. So, and this kind of a rhythm, which is very useful to us in communicating. It helps us to find our way through the confusing stream of continuous speech, enabling us to divide speech into words or other units to signal changes between topic or speaker and to spot which item in the message are the most important. Right. So every language has a particular rhythm. Okay. And in an English utterance, the prominent or okay, there are two types of rhythm, the stressed timed rhythm and syllable timed rhythm. So the English language is said to be having a stress timed rhythm, whereas French, Spanish, Japanese, Italian, and most of the Indian languages show syllable timed rhythm, whereas languages like English, Russian, Swedish, and Arabic show a stressed timed rhythm. Since English has a stress timed rhythm, we shall restrict the discussion on rhythm to stress timed rhythm and ignore all the syllable timed rhythm in this session, right? So in an English utterance, the prominent or stressed syllable tend to occur at regular intervals of time, irrespective of the number of weak or unaccented syllable between any two accented syllables. The time interval between any two stressed syllables is isochronous. It means that in an utterance or a sentence, the time taken from one stressed syllable to the next will tend to be roughly the same, irrespective of the number of intervening unstressed syllables. Now here we have an example. There are unequal number of unstressed syllables between any two stressed syllables. However, when they are spoken, the time interval between two stressed syllables seems the same. Now, the unstressed syllables are underlined. Okay. So, Joy has just returned from France. My son has arranged for my return journey. So, it looks almost the same. The rhythm, it shows it's almost the same as discussed. It's kind of a stress timed rhythm. Right. The syllable timed rhythm. Okay, in sentence, um, this is one of the reasons why learners find spoken discourse more difficult to understand than written discourse. Sometimes understanding of language is not hampered due to lack of vocabulary, but because of the lack of ability to deal with these features of connected speech. And that is what we talk about the syllable timed rhythm. So as we all know, the language English, where it follows the stressed, it's a stress time rhythm. So it depends upon the stress on the word, like is it the content word or the structure word? Basically, it depends on it, and that is how the rhythm is followed based on the stress pattern of the words. So here, rhythm is a sense of movement in speech, which is marked by stress, timing, and quantity of syllables. Spoken English words with two or more syllables have different stress and length patterns. The rhythm of English is based on the contrast of stressed and unstressed syllables in regular intervals, with the stresses falling within content words. Now, the stressed syllables of the sentence create beats. The beats of the following sentence fall on the words like and the second syllable of. So here we can just look into page number 75. Right? So here we have um, choose the correct pattern of rhythm in connected speech for the sentence. So here it means complete it in the morning. So which is the right pattern there? So if you look at it, it is B. Complete it in the morning, right? Because the stress is on this first syllable over there, the second syllable, right? Complete it in the morning, right? Then take the dog for a walk. That is, which is the correct one? The first one. Take the dog for a walk. Now you can also see the slide where it talks about the stress, where John wants to be an actor, so he wants to live in Hollywood. So the important words have been stressed out there. So what did you do yesterday, right? What did you do yesterday? You're not going to the place, are you? Right. Now next, we move on to determining the word class, right? That is unit 5, which talks about the word classes. So after uh, the session, you must be able to identify open and closed class words and their properties, and also contrast the morphological and syntactic methods of determining word classes with the traditional methods, and demonstrate the word class of a new word using morphological and syntactic tests. So what is this basically word class? Word class is nothing but it's a parts of speech, isn't it? The word, it belongs to which part of speech is nothing but word class. So here, to determine the word class of a word, you can consider its meaning, its form, and function in a sentence. Now, this classification system is called parts of speech. Okay. And first and foremost, the meaning. What does the word refer to or express? I mean, that is how you will be able to figure out the word class. What kind of meaning does it have? And when you talk about the form, what is the word's morphological structure, including its root, suffix, and inflections, right? So when I say morphological structure, the complete internal structure of a word, whether it is a word with a morpheme, with a bound morpheme, with an independent morpheme, or just a single free morpheme, and then has it got a suffix? Is it a derivative or derived word, or is it an inflected affix or so? So what suffixes does the word typically accept? So all these come under the form. Now coming to the function. What is the word's purpose or role in a sentence? How does the word relate to other words in the sentence? Now looking at all these, you will be able to determine the word class of a word. Now, basically, they are divided into two categories, open and closed word classes. Now, some word classes are open, that is, new words can be added to the class as the need arises. So, the class of nouns, for instance, is potentially infinite, since it's continually being expanded as new scientific discoveries are made, new products are developed, and new ideas are explored. So in the late 20th century, for example, developments in computer technology have given rise to many new nouns, right? So like, for example, you have internet website, then you have multimedia, modem, and so on. Then coming to the verbs, you have download, upload, then double click, reboot, and so on. And the adjective and adverb classes can also be expanded by the addition of new words, though less prolifically, right? But whatever it is, they are called as open word classes. Why? Because there can be a growth of vocabulary in these categories. So on the other hand, we never invent new prepositions, determiners, or conjunctions. Now, these classes include words like of, the, and but. They are called closed words classes. And because they are made up of finite sets of words, which are never expanded, the subclass of pronouns within the open noun class is also closed. So words in an open class are known as open class items. Words in a closed class are known as closed class items. When you look at these open class of words, which carries following parameters. Now, these words are infinite. They are content words. Please remember, all the content words are open class words, and they are mutually inclusive. I mean, they are like, they accept words. They are inclusive. Now, if you look at the characteristics of open class, or the words which belong to this open class, the words belonging to open class are infinite, since new words can be borrowed or created and added to the stock of old words. So English is termed sponge language, as it has been deriving words from different languages, both European and non-European. Now, what about the second parameter? The words of the open class are content words, and by which we mean that they are independent and carry bulk of the meaning when used in different grammatical units. For example, a boy, the large house, has written at one place. Okay, now the third parameter, they are mutually exclusive. It means one word of a group of this class can be replaced with another similar word without damaging the meaning. For example, man can be replaced with person, chap, fellow, gentleman, or guy, or etc. Now coming to the characteristics of closed class words. Now the closed class of words, they exhibit the following parameters. As I already told you, they are finite in number. I mean, they're quite limited. and they are mutually exclusive. And here, the list of the new words are not allowed as per the first parameter and the second parameter, and they play a kind of a secondary role in different grammatical units, and they are dependent and they are mutually exclusive. They cannot be replaced with one another, where selection of a particular word automatically cancels the use of the other. Right? Now, identifying open class words. Right. When you talk about the word noun, right, when it talks about the meaning, the physical phenomena, like for example, states, events, occasions, or sometimes an abstract. And here the main element in a noun phrase, which typically occurs as the subject or object of a sentence, now often preceded by the most common word in English. And if you look at the form, right, the most varied of all word classes, but they sometimes have characteristic inflections. Like, for example, singer, runner, ism, fascism, and shun, station, and ity, divinity, masculinity. And then you have hood, falsehood, childhood, then ness, happiness, goodness, and can be singular or plural. And another important point is the nominal inflections, where the nouns carry the following inflectional affixes, like, boys for the plural, classes, dogs, and sometimes the possessive S, where it says boys, mobiles, and so on. Okay, coming to the verbal inflections in English, verbs. So, the central or a very important element in any sentence when analyzing a grammatical structure, always look out for the verbs. What do they, when you look up for the meaning, what do you come across? They express actions, processes, activities, states, etc. Right? And function, main verbs always function on their own or on the head word of a verb phrase. And they have a characteristic inflections. They are the most inflected word class in English. Most English verbs are regular in inflection, but there are about 200 irregular verbs. So if you look at the verbal inflections in English, like for example, S, where you have walks, reads, sings, and then you have ing, walking, reading, listening, or ed, where you have walked, danced, latched. Then you have en, broken, written, shaken, and so on. Coming to the adjectival inflections in English. So how do you figure out the adjectives? Where we all know it typically denotes a quality or property attributed to a noun. They help to specify or narrow down what the noun refers to, right? And it modifies a noun within a noun phrase or at subject or object of a sentence. Can be the head of an adjective phrase, like, for example, she is very nice, right? And then coming to the form, uh, we have inflectional affixes such as er, where smarter, bigger, cleaner. Then we have est, tallest, greatest, oldest. and so on. So looking at this comparative and superlative degrees also, like by adding it, when you look at the word, you can make it out into an uh, add inflectional affixes and make it into the degrees of comparison, like funny, funnier, funniest, good, better, best, then beautiful, more beautiful, and most beautiful. So some adjectives are formed by using present and past participle forms of verbs. So the running goat, the hatched egg, the harassed lecturer, etc. Coming to the adverbs, specifies the circumstances relating to the action process. The, so it adds circumstantial information of time, place, manner, etc. It can modify adjectives, where adverbs of degree can modify adjectives very, hardly, rather, fairly, quite, and they are flexible creatures and can easily occur in different places in a clause or sentence, while other word classes tend to be fixed in the order in which they occur. Now, for example, look at the word suddenly. Suddenly, he leapt out. He leapt out suddenly. The word order can be changed. He suddenly leapt out. He leapt suddenly up. So coming to the morphological test, uh, by this test, how is it we are able to figure out the nouns? It talks about the nouns. So that is called by the nominalizing affixes, right? So here, when I talk about the nominalizing affixes, which form nouns are called nominalizing affixes. And the derived word is a noun. Now, here are a few examples where you have the shun, association, communicate becomes communication, that is called the nominalizing affixes, determination, then ity, where you have reality or sincerity, punctuality, acceptability, and so on. Then coming to denominalizing affixes. Now, what does this mean? If you look at the morphological test of this word, that is, when you look at the affixes which attach to nouns and form words belonging to different word classes, and that those are called denominalizing affixes. Now, when you see these affixes, you know that the word to which these affixes have attached is a noun. Now, for example, acid, it's like, uh, uh, they transform nouns into other word classes. So IZE. Here IZE is used to form verbs from nouns. So for example, legalize. Okay. The word legal, legalize. Okay. This is denominalizing. Then again, another word, IFY. Uh, so there's one more called AL, national, normal, congregational. Right. Then we have adjectival affixes. where here affixes which form adjectives are called adjectivalizing affixes. When you see these affixes, you know that the derived word is an adjective. So for example, from noun, it is converted into an adjective by adding OUS. That is joyous, dangerous, right? Now again, FUL, where it converts into adjective, that is beautiful, beauty, beautiful, care, careful, wonderful, and so on. Then a few more examples which are given on the slide. Then this is de-adjectivalizing affixes, now which attach to adjectives and form words belonging to different word classes. They are called de-adjectivalizing affixes. The moment you look at it, you will know that the word to which these affixes are attached is an adjective. For example, ITY, sincerity. Then punctuality, attached to punctual. Okay. And you have sincere, ITY, sincerity. Then you have acceptability. So for example, another NES, where adjective is converted into noun. Happiness, happy, coming to happiness. Then there is an example of ism, realism, optimism, and so on. Verbalizing affixes. Here, verbalizing affixes which form verbs are called verbalizing affixes. We look at the affixes to know that the derived word is a verb. So for modern, you add IZE, modernize, or real, realize. Then bright becomes brighten or shorten. Or classify, IFY, classify, notify, simplify, intensify, right. Then we have deverbalizing affixes. What is deverbalizing affixes? They are affixes which attach to verbs and form words belonging to different word classes. They are called as deverbalizing affixes. For example, writer, which is attached to the verb write, right? And dance, dancer, teach, teacher. ER is attached to this verb and hence there is a change of word class. Then shun, associate, association. The next, after the morphological, we have the syntactic test. Right. So when you look at the syntactic test, here, this is a test which is for determining the word classes of particular items which rely on the distribution of the word in a language. So here, what does this distribution mean? the set of words that are likely to precede or follow a word in a sentence. So looking at that pattern, that is called, and we can figure out the word class, and that's called a syntactic test. How, looking at the word, I mean the word class of a word by examining how it behaves in different sentence structures. Now, these tests rely on the fact that different word classes have distinct grammatical properties. Right. So when you turn to page 89, we have a few sentences given here. So boys are more demanding than girls. The boy is eating an apple. The tall boy is eating an apple. The tall boy in the corner is eating an apple, and so on. So here, the first point, which tells us that there is only one word that follows an article in English, and that word has to be a noun. And another sentence says that there's only one word that follows an adjective in English, and that word has to be a noun. And there's only one word that follows an adjective and precedes a preposition in English, and that word has to be a noun. And whereas 19th statement says that there's only one word that precedes a relative clause, and that word has to be a noun. So the syntax is not particularly about the word or its shape, but rather about its word class. So to find out a words class using syntactic test, you can use substitution test, where you replace the word with another known word of a specific class to see if the sentence remains grammatically correct. If it does, then the original word likely belongs to the same class as the substitute word. You can also observe the position of the word within a sentence and its ability to take grammatical inflections to determine its class. Okay, let us quickly look at the key points about syntactic tests. One is substitution. This is the core method where you replace the target word with another word that you know the class of and see if the sentence still makes sense grammatically. Okay. So if, for example, substitution, for the substitution, if I give you the example, the car is red, right? So instead of car, car is a noun here. So instead of car, I will take up something like dog. So the dog is red. Yes, it does go. It can be substituted. Hence, it is likely to be a noun. So that is how we figure it out. Then distribution. Well, another example for verb. Now, if you can change the tense of the word, then you can, come to conclusion that it is something to do with verb. For example, you add ed for past tense. Example, she walks to school. Then for walks, if I just add ed, she walked to school. Yes, it is likely to be a verb. Another example for an adverb, adjective. Can you add, see, if you can add very before the word. Now, the book was interesting. Now, I add very, right? The book was very interesting. So, it is likely to be an adjective, right? Now, coming to an adverb. How do you figure out the adverb? Can you see, you can add really before the word. For example, he spoke slowly. He spoke really slowly. So it is likely to be an adverb. So here, what do I mean? Context is the key. And so distribution, where a word can appear in a sentence, is a key indicator of its class. And check if the word can take grammatical endings like S for plural, that is noun, ed for past tense, that is for the verb, er for comparative, that is the adjective, And these are some of the tests for different word classes. Right. And another important aspect to be remembered, that is the context. Sometimes the same word can belong to different classes depending on the sentence context. Right. Then analyzing the word's internal structure, that is the prefixes and suffixes, can also provide hints about its classes. Right. So with this, we finish Unit 4 and 5. The next session, we'll be taking up verbs, the different types of verbs.